Hello everyone, this is Julia. Welcome back to my channel, or just welcome if you're new here. In today's video we are going to be doing a speed build, and we are building this family home in Gibbi Point on a 40 by 30 lot. In my opinion, this is a medium-sized build. It has 3 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms. It also has a small home office and a very tiny home gym, if you can even call it that. It is basically just a very small room with a treadmill in it, so it's nothing fancy, but I did add it because I had a little bit of extra room in the house and I didn't really know what to do with it. I came up with the idea to make this build because I wanted to build something in Gibbi Point specifically for the Adventure Awaits expansion, because I haven't really had any chance to properly test out that pack. So I just wanted to make something that I had specifically designed for that expansion pack, I guess. So yeah, this was what I came up with, and I'm pretty happy with the end result. My overall idea of this build was so different when I first started making this, or more like planning this, because I have this tendency that I like to go in build mode and kind of plan my builds. I'll just play around for a while and I don't film this part. I just like it to be this thing that I do before filming, so that I can have a better idea of what I'm actually going to make when I start building. So I feel like it really helps me, because usually when I start building, I have no idea what I'm actually going to make. And it feels like I'm all over the place, and it can be a little bit stressful to just start filming at that point. So I like to make a little bit of a plan before I start filming, and it calms my nerves a lot, so I can actually just relax when I'm making the build. By the way, for once I can actually proudly say that I made a limited pack build. Yay! So I only used base game plus 4 packs to make this build. I used the Adventure Awaits expansion, obviously, but then I used Get Together, For Rent, and Outdoor Retreat. So 4 packs plus base game is quite a good amount of packs, at least in my opinion. It did feel limiting, but not like too limiting, I guess. So I still felt like I had a lot of options for most of the stuff that I was doing with the build, but sometimes I did end up like missing some of my favorite objects from other packs. But you know, I feel like I did fine, and I'm happy with the fact that I decided to make a limited pack build, because sometimes there are some perks to it as well. One thing is obviously that you need to think a little bit more creatively, because you can't use all those objects that you're so used to using every single time you make a build. But also something that I really noticed when I was building this was that it was so easy to find some things in the build by catalog when it isn't filled with every single item that we have in the game. It just it made the process feel a little bit more simple, I guess, because everything was just very easily found, I suppose, and I did enjoy that. So yeah, maybe one day I will be better at making these limited pack builds. I mean, I feel like it always feels like it's so much work, but in the end it's not really that bad. By the way, I kind of have to admit here that it was actually supposed to be a 3 packs plus base game build, but I really wanted to use something other than the base game cabinets and counters for the kitchen of this build. So I ended up choosing to use For Rent just for the kitchen cabinets and counters, because I felt like they really suited this build. And I did end up using some like decorative objects here and there from the for rent pack because, well, I was already using the build, so why not use some other objects here as well. But the main reason why I decided to use that pack was for the kitchen cabinets and counters. And yeah, I'm a little bit ashamed of that, but you know, sometimes you just gotta do what you gotta do. And it still doesn't have too many packs, so I'm happy with the amounts of packs that I used, even though I did end up changing it a little bit from my original idea. Since we're confessing things, I guess I could say that I also used Get Together for a very small reason. So I just felt like I had to use the wall ivy from Get Together in this build because I wanted some of that in here. I feel like it really completes the exterior, and I know I have a real huge issue with wall ivy. I feel like I want to add it for every single build that I make. I really need to hold myself back sometimes so that I can, you know, make a build without it. But I don't know, there's something about wall ivy, and I especially like the one that we got from Cottage Living, even though the Get Together wall ivy options are also very nice. But the Cottage Living wall ivy is definitely my biggest weakness. Like, I tend to use it all the time. I just can't stop myself from using it. And I really need to limit myself more with that. But yeah, the wall ivy was the main reason that I ended up using Get Together here. But yeah, I don't know. I'm a little bit ashamed of using some packs simply for one item. But I don't think it's that bad because, you know, I didn't end up using a lot of packs. By the way, I'm not really sure if I mentioned about this already or not. I really can't remember anything that I've said. That is so difficult when I'm making voiceovers. Like, I keep forgetting. Have I already talked about this? I have no idea. But anyway, maybe I'm repeating myself. But I just wanted to say that I designed this build for like an active and adventurous family, so that is why I added some fun activities on the lot. So there is the pool with a water slide, and then there is like an archery target, and there's also a hot tub and probably some other stuff that I can't remember right now. But yeah, I really tried to make this build the kind that has a lot of things for the Sims to do, even without leaving their house. I feel like that would really suit the family that I pictured living in this build. And even though I'm talking about picturing the family living in here, I don't really have an actual idea of them. It's more like a generic idea of their like most important interests and the number of Sims living in this build. So I was kind of thinking that there would be parents, and one of them would be very fitness oriented in some way, and then the other one would maybe be a musician, and they would have 2 kids, and one of those kids would be a teenager who is at least a little bit interested in photography and painting. And then the other one would be like a kid or a preteen who would probably just like sports or something like that. To be honest, I didn't have such a good idea for the other sibling. It was much more generic than the teenager. But at least I had some kind of idea, so that always helps me when I'm trying to make the house that I'm building feel a little bit more lived in. I gotta say that the interior was interesting to make. And what I mean by that is that I had a lot of fun, yeah, sure, but I also struggled with it a lot. And it was mainly because I had like too many ideas at once. I really couldn't decide on a color scheme or the overall style very easily. I really had to like think about it, and I had to try a lot of things. I was trying out a lot of different swatches before I could actually decide what I wanted to do with the interior. But like eventually when I like decided what I wanted to do, I did heavily rely on the like aesthetic that we get pretty much straight from the objects that came with the Adventure Awaits expansion pack. So those objects are very like neutral colored, but then there are these like swatches that have like a lot of color, like they are so colorful, and I wanted to implement that in this build. So I used mainly very neutral swatches for the walls and the main furniture, but then I used the super colorful swatches for like decorational items such as rugs and also some smaller furniture like armchairs and stuff like that. And I feel like I really love the aesthetic of this build, even though it did feel a little bit different from what I would usually make. I didn't try to make it look too serious. I wanted it to match the vibe of the pack that we were building for, I guess. I also kind of struggled with filling up the biggest rooms in this build, especially the living room felt really intimidating for me because it was rather big and I was kind of panicking. Like I was just thinking, how can I actually fill this space up without it looking extremely empty or just awkward? Like there would just be something stuffed in there that doesn't look like it actually belongs. But I feel like I ended up doing a pretty good job, and I'm happy that I didn't shy away from doing some a little bit bigger rooms than I'm used to, because I think they ended up very nicely. Something that I realized after filming the build was that I kind of forgot to clutter up some things and, you know, add some details. So I did do some of that off cam because I felt a little bit ridiculous about going back and filming me placing a couple of like pillows and a few clutter items in the bookshelves or some stuff like that. So I thought that I'm just gonna do this off cam and it's fine. But you can see what I changed in the screenshots. But that actually brings in mind that when I was taking the screenshots, I actually realized that I had still forgotten some pretty important clutter items, or at least they're pretty important to me. So one of the bathrooms, for an example, doesn't have toilet paper. I realized it when I was taking the screenshots and I was like, oh well, I guess they just don't have toilet paper here, or maybe it's hidden somewhere, you know? It's a good thing that the Sims don't actually need the toilet paper, so it is simply a decorational item, but I really like to have it in every single bathroom that I make, because it feels weird if a bathroom doesn't have toilet paper, you know? So I did feel a little bit weird about it, but I just didn't feel like bothering myself so much that I would go back into build mode and change that up. So yeah, one of the bathrooms doesn't have toilet paper, and there are probably some other little details missing from the build that I don't know if anyone else would actually notice. But for me personally, those feel like so weird when I miss something like that. And so yeah, I don't know, I wanted to mention it anyway. Also, the bathrooms in this build are rather okay looking, and that has been something that I've been a little bit surprised with my recent builds. Like, I feel like I've improved with bathrooms a little bit. I guess I'm just paying a little bit more attention to them, and it's nothing more special than that. But I don't know, my recent bathrooms have felt a lot better than the bathrooms that I've made before, and I'm really happy about that. I really hope that I can keep my bathroom enthusiasm up, because, well, it can be a little bit depressing to have like a beautiful home for your Sims, but then there is like one space that looks so boring and just, you know, not good. So yeah, I've been very happy that I've been able to make bathrooms that I'm actually rather like content with. Also, I was pretty much panicking while I was playtesting this build. So I have playtested this, or at least tried to playtest, because I'm never sure if I've remembered everything. But yeah, I always try to playtest my builds, at least. But while I was playtesting this, my sim actually managed to get the grill on fire, and I was so scared that she was gonna burn the entire house down, because I hadn't saved this to my library yet. So I was like, please, please, please do not burn the entire house down. Like, I was really panicking, but luckily I could, you know, maintain the fire before it got too bad. And everything was fine in the end. I just had to replace the grill, but you know, that was very little effort. But yeah, I just wanted to mention that I had to go through some very traumatic stuff while I was playtesting this build. And I feel like that has actually happened to me pretty often lately. Like with another build that I just made a little while ago, my sim was, or I was like playtesting the build, and my sim was cooking on the stove, and then she managed to get that stove on fire. And it was pretty much the same story with that one. I managed to maintain the fire and no big damage was done to the build. But something that I really learned from these is that I need to save my builds to the library before I playtest them, because it is not nice being afraid that hours of your work are going to just vanish. I mean, I guess I could probably just like leave the game without saving and everything should probably be fine, as long as I've saved the game at some point at least. But yeah, it's very stressful, you know? And I need to try to remember to always save my builds to the library before I do any playtesting, because apparently my Sims love to get things on fire. Which is really weird actually, because usually when I do gameplay, I'm really hoping for some chaos. I'm hoping that something really crazy is gonna happen, and then nothing ever does. Like, my gameplay is always so cozy, which, I mean, I also like that, but I like cozy chaos, you know? I want some fires, I want something, you know, extra happening to my Sims, but it never does. It's always when I'm doing like playtesting for my builds, that's when all the crazy stuff happens, never when I'm actually doing some gameplay. One of my Sims also got like robbed in the middle of the night when I was going to do some playtesting, and it was like so weird, because I have also been waiting for that to happen when I'm doing gameplay, but it just doesn't happen. And I'm so sad about that, because I want that chaotic gameplay, but it doesn't happen. Maybe I just don't play enough, like in the live mode, or some people say it's live mode, but I feel weird saying live mode. Live mode sounds so much better to me. But tell me in the comments, what do you think? Is it live mode or live mode? I mean, I don't know. It feels weird to just say live mode. But I get the idea behind that. I get why you would say that, but it feels odd to me. Also, at the end of like making this build, I went back in and just changed some things that felt a little bit weird to me. Like I had used a very small rug for that huge living room, and I went ahead and sized that rug up so it doesn't look so awkward. And I'm very glad that I did that. I also added some finishing touches for the landscaping, and I feel like these small changes really changed the build in a very good way. But anyway, we are starting to get to the end of this video, so I really hope that you have enjoyed this, and if you did, please give it a thumbs up, and also remember to subscribe to my channel if you want to see more videos from me. Thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you in my next video. Bye!